Hi, this is Carl the Cobra Frutch, and you're watching Lights Out.
Anthony Joshua demolishes Francis Ngannou. Is the old Anthony Joshua back? And does this version of Anthony Joshua beat Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury? Jospeh Parker continues his impressive form by beating Big Bang Zhilei Zhang. Is Jospeh Parker the man to maybe disrupt the big names in the heavyweight division? Nick Ball puts on a tremendous performance and drops world champion Rey Vargas, but is still robbed thanks to another controversial decision. A former boxing legend announces his next fight against social media sensation, and one of the pound-for-pound kings, Canelo Alvarez, also announces his next fight. This is Faisal Khan for Lights Out, proudly sponsored by Spartans Law, and this is podcast 74 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast. It has been a while, but with me, as always, I'm delighted to be joined by my right-hand man, Mr. Mohsin Gulsher, aka Ron. Ron, a pleasure to have you back. I hope you're well. Before, obviously, Ron gets involved in today's podcast, just a few quick friendly reminders. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for more Lights Out Boxing content. And if you're a fan of listening to podcasts on any of the audio platforms, the links are below in the description to listen to this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or any audio platform you feel. Please feel free to check out our sponsors, the number one, Spartans Law. And if you want to know more about Team Lights Out, links are below in the description. Ron, before I ask you to hit me with a quick fire question, how you doing? It's been a while.
Yes, I'm not too bad, thank you. Really enjoying. There's a nice little break of boxing, but then we're back in continuing on Riyadh at the moment, which I enjoyed the other night. But other than that, all good.
Good to get the show back on the road. We have had a little bit of a break, but we made a promise to each other that whenever there's a big show or there's a big talking point in boxing, we will give our opinion, and that's what we're going to do on today's podcast. But obviously, we begin with the quick fire question, which the reins is over to you, Ron. So yeah, hit me with today's quick fire question.
Okay, again, it's another little hypothetical question.
Go on.
Okay, if you were a boxer, what would be your attire? What would you wear to the ring in terms of what color trunks would you have? What kind of, just give me your color code, and what color, what type of gloves would you wear, and what color as well? I mean, thinking about, if you think about boxers, they've got names of partners or their children or on charity that they're kind of feeling very, deep. That's very personal to them. What would you wear on your trunks?
What
trunks would you wear? Yeah, that's it.
Well, you'd obviously want a big sponsor like an Adidas or Nike. I'd probably want something like a red color with white stripes coming down either side. I'd probably have my son's name or the Palestine colors with the Palestine flag at the back. As a robe, I don't know. I've never looked at the robes. They've never really got me. When the fight.
Do you remember Deontay Wilder with what he was wearing, and he blamed his defeat?
Yeah, I do.
On that whatever he's wearing.
And it was a great excuse by the Bronze Bomber. I remember the robes. Whenever I speak about a robe in boxing, I remember Rocky let Paulie sort of do his media marketing, and he got him a robe. And I remember him saying before the first fight with Apollo Creed, the robe's a little bit baggy. I'm not a fan of robes. I probably wouldn't want to wear a robe. Gloves. No. Again, it's a tough question, man. It's a fucking tough question, that is. Again, probably something red, white, Adidas. I'd obviously, a lot of fighters like to draw something on their tape that they put around their gloves. I'd probably, again, want to write something to do with my son or something to do with Palestine. What about you? What would be your attire? Oh, I would not wear long socks. The socks would be short. I think long socks on boxers look hideous.
I remember some iconic kind of what they wear to the ring. I mean, Mike Tyson had his famous black shorts. They're very short shorts. that was his style. Muhammad Ali had the white trunks, which obviously AJ kind of pays homage to in every fight of his. You probably would have noticed. I remember Prince Nazim Mohammed had the leopard skin, very stylish kind of trunks that he had. And Johnny Nelson as well. I think I couldn't describe it to you, but I just remember it kind of really sticking out in my head. What boxers wear. Yeah, so that's I mean, does it need to speak your personality? I mean, I'll tell you what I've noticed as well with the Smith brothers. They're always support, and that's what I really like the Smith brothers. They always have autism on their kind of trunks as well. So that's a nice little touch. And sometimes they've got their nicknames as well. Like Callum Smith, was it Mundo? Is his nickname on his trunk? So yeah.
Great question. Love to get the viewers' response to that. Mind you, I'm glad you mentioned the Nassim Hamed shorts. They were very an interesting choice by the great Prince Nassim. But we've got a lot to discuss today, Ron, and obviously we'll begin with the review of last weekend's boxing show in Saudi Arabia, Knockout Chaos. And the main event is obviously the main talking point. Anthony Joshua, as I said, he demolished Francis Ngannou, dropped him in the first and completely wiped him out in the second. I had it down as the Riyadh demolition job. And you got to give credit where it's due. He did what was expected. He did not take this guy lightly. And it was a good performance from Joshua. And there was a lot of pressure going on him into this fight. Obviously, a lot of people were asking the question of, look at how Ngannou troubled Tyson Fury. Is Ngannou going to cause problems for AJ in this fight? And I thought Joshua did exactly what Fury should have done. He didn't take him lightly. He just went in and he got the job done. He didn't piss about. He didn't hold back. He let fire from the very first second of the fight. And I always said that Joshua was going to win that fight by knockout, but I didn't believe he'd do it that quick. What did you make of the performance, Ron? And more importantly, right? That's now 4 wins in a row. Is it fair to say that the old Anthony Joshua is back, or should we be looking at this as the new version of Anthony Joshua?
I mean, first of all, I want to say I really like this Anthony Joshua under Ben Davidson. Let's give credit where it's due. I think he's done really good work with him. They seem to be gelling really well. I think the Anthony Joshua under Derek James would have been a little bit more apprehensive, would have kept it, kept his distance for ages, kind of sizing him up. And that's what frustrated me when I was watching that Anthony Joshua. He looked like he was in between two styles, but I like this performance. He was very decisive. I mean, the first knockdown, if you think about it, it was just a straight jab, just straight down the middle. And Francis Ngannou was kind of knocked off his feet. And you could tell that was a stiff jab as well, because Francis kind of took his time coming up. He didn't jump back up, which is good. I'm glad he did that, just to kind of get back to his senses. And clearly he never really recovered from that. And I don't know if you picked up on it, the commentary team really picked up on it, that Ngannou was adopting a southpaw stance.
Yeah.
That kind of completely threw himself. And well, I mean, if you're not used to fighting that southpaw stance, especially against someone like Anthony Joshua, who's an Olympic gold medalist as well, who can box, get behind the jab, like you've got to make sure if you're going to do a southpaw stance, you've got to get it right. You don't fuck about. And clearly it just didn't look right. He didn't get the distances right, and he got caught coming in. The second round, he was poleaxed. That was the expression that I've got there. But I really liked, I think Anthony Joshua really picked his punches really nicely. Just knew when to step in and not to overreach. You couldn't have asked for a better performance, to be honest, in the second round. So, yeah, well, not what we expected. People were expecting knockout on the other way around. You can see Ngannou wasn't short of intentioned. He was trying to land that big hand early on in that fight to make a statement. But I think Joshua, kind of picked his punches, and that's all she wrote.
I'm glad that you mentioned the southpaw stance because, all right, fine, yeah, he had a successful night against Tyson Fury, but I'm still putting that down to the fact that was just a Tyson Fury who, one, didn't even train properly for that fight, and two, he took Ngannou lightly. But Anthony Joshua, obviously, with the run that he's been on, it just baffled me that Francis Ngannou, who's been boxing for not even longer than a year, decided to switch to a southpaw stance in the opening first round of the fight. I remember Dillian White tried doing that a few years ago with Tyson Fury, and it just made me think, what the hell are you doing? I mean, you're fighting a guy that's got an amateur Olympic pedigree, and you're fighting a guy that's performing well over the sort of last 12 months. It was a really bold move, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, but Ngannou should have done this, Ngannou should have done that. Let's get it right. Francis Ngannou is an MMA fighter before a boxer. Okay, so credit to him for getting into the ring, and credit to him for even taking on the challenges such as Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. But this fight proved to me two things: one, crossover fights should not happen. Okay, number one, and number two, there's a lot of people right now, and I'm not going to be critical, but there's a lot of people in boxing right now. Anthony Joshua's back. Anthony Joshua's going to knock out Tyson Fury. Let's just slow down a minute, right? Okay, this is the Anthony Joshua that's still rebuilding. Okay, he's beaten four guys that he should be beaten, right? Okay, Jermaine Franklin, Robert Helenius, Otto Wallin are probably not even in the top 10 of any governing bodies right now. This is no disrespect to them, and he's beaten a guy that's been boxing for like what, 6 months. So we will know more about Anthony Joshua when he fights a Tyson Fury. We will know more about Anthony Joshua when he fights an Alexander Usyk. We'll probably know more about him if he fights a Jospeh Parker, a Zhilei Zhang, or even a Deontay Wilder. But for people to start turning around and saying because he's beaten an MMA fighter that he's going to destroy Tyson Fury, that he would beat Alexander Usyk, just take a chill pill for God's sakes. Like, calm down a second. This guy's rebuilding. He's on a good path. We want to see the fights with Tyson Fury. I'd even like to see a third fight with Alexander Usyk. But he's beating guys he's supposed to beat. Ron, the comments I've just made, are these fair comments? Can we actually only really judge him when he does fight the elite fighters in this division?
Look, yeah, I mean, you can't knock his choice of fighters. He was supposed to fight. If you would have added Dillian White to that list, that resume. The last four fights would have looked a lot better. But this is Ngannou, who went all the way with Tyson Fury, and some even dispute he won. He should have won that fight, and he held his own. So he walked away with nothing but credit after that fight. Yes, he got his 0-1, but people were taking him a lot more seriously.
Yeah, but Ronnie didn't win the fight though. Regardless of what we thought
Okay,
of the fight,
but
he didn't win the fight.
I mean, but
He caught Tyson Fury in an off night. Simple as.
Oh, come on! It
No, he
takes two
caught
to
Tyson
tango.
Fury.
I think you're downplaying what
Downplaying anything.
it was to achieve. He shocked the boxing world. Put a boxer like an elite boxer like no one boxes better than Tyson Fury. I'll say that hands down. For someone his size and his dimensions, but he made him look bad. Tyson Fury was supposed to box his head off. Kind of like keep him at distance, but he didn't let him have that fight. And we walked away thinking, okay, this has got a lot more interesting now. Deontay Wilder obviously didn't win the fight that he was supposed to. That was the fight that was supposed to happen last night. But scripts don't go as they're supposed to, as we learned with the Ngannou and Fury fight, and obviously in the Wilder and Jospeh Parker fight. But Joshua can only beat people whoever I put in front of him, and I agree with you that I thought it was a joke that the winner, like let's just say Ngannou somehow did win that fight, he'd be in line for an undisputed shot at the winner of Fury and Usyk. So that's the madness of it all. But I'm glad common sense prevailed and Joshua did what he had to do. It was a very professional performance, and you don't get paid for overtime. He did it early, so you can't knock him for that.
Yeah, you don't get paid for overtime. I agree, but in my opinion, it was a win that was high risk, low reward. I think the biggest positive out of that fight is to see that he didn't look gun shy. He looked like the old Anthony Joshua. I'm not saying the old Anthony Joshua's back, but we saw glimpses of the old Anthony Joshua that just looked like a mean motherfucker, if you know what I mean. And I think Ben Davison, in this relationship that he's gathered with Ben Davison's probably turned around and said to him, listen, why are we trying to change you into something that you're not? The guy that you were when you fought Alexander Usyk, Dillian White, okay, probably might not be able to get you back to that level because obviously age catches up on you. But what a fighter never loses is his power. And I think with Ben Davison, he wants him to continue as a power puncher, you know. And that version of Anthony Joshua right now will trouble most heavyweights. But I'm still going by the fact that he still doesn't beat Alexander Usyk, and he hasn't in 2 fights. They fought 24 rounds, and in my opinion, he probably troubled Usyk for 2 of those 24 rounds. And he doesn't get nowhere near Tyson Fury. That's just my opinion. But does Ben Davison have it in his locker to get Anthony Joshua to beat these two in Usyk and Fury right now, Ron?
Remember what Ben Davison said after the first fight they did together against Otto Wallin? He's like, look, you know, when he got together, he actually said, I can tell you how to beat Usyk if you ever fought him again. Like, because obviously Ben Davison's watched the videos. I mean, God, you know, it's a very hypothetical right now because we don't know what we've got another fight in May. Hopefully, if it goes through this time, we'll never know. So maybe AJ he wants to be 3-time world champion. So he's done his side of things. You know, say what you want. All right, fine. You feel he didn't fight a credible top 10 boxer, someone who's only fought 2 fights, but he is in a position where he's mandatory for a title challenge. So, and Turkey El Sheikh said the winner of Usyk and Fury fights AJ now.
Well, I mean, yeah, he probably is in line for a world title shot, but he's got a long wait because, you know, we're being told that the Fury Usyk is a 2-fight deal. So we're going to get a rematch. Well, we've got to get the first fight before we even get the second fight.
Absolutely. So I'm not holding my breath yet. So that's a year in the making, in my opinion, because I mean, Tyson Fury, if you're lucky, fights once a year, 1.5 fights a year. I think he had his last fight in October. What was it?
The Gypsy King does what the Gypsy King wants to do.
He does.
Okay?
So
he's the daddy of the sport. He's the #1 man in the heavyweight division. He will do whatever the F he wants to do, and everyone else will follow in line. It's as simple as
he'll do that 5 meters away from Ngannou.
Let's not go into politics, but let's talk about who else was on that card. Jospeh Parker with yet another impressive performance and a huge win against Big Bang Zhilei Zhang. Now, I mean, we spoke about the credibility that Ben Davison deserves for the job he's doing with Anthony Joshua. I think Andy Lee probably deserves the most credit in boxing right now. I mean, the rebuilding job they are doing with Jospeh Parker is very, very impressive. I mean, he got dismantled by Joe Joyce, and he's won 5 fights in the last 14 months, and he's won big fights. And the last 2 fights he's won are probably 2 of the guys that you probably consider in the top 5 heavyweight fighters of the world right now. Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang. Now, listen, it all started off wrong for Jospeh Parker. He suffered 2 knockdowns in the fight. But what I was really impressed with him the most is how he weathered the storm, how he kept calm, how he didn't rush his punches, how he took his time. And I said during the fight, I said it in one of my WhatsApp groups, it wasn't our group, and I said, the only way Parker wins this fight, even though he's been knocked down once already, and I said it before the fight as well, he has to take Zhang into deep waters. And when he did that, after round 5, the fight was just going to go one way. Zhang was overweight. He was badly out of shape. He gassed out after round 4. I know he's 40 years old, but come off it. I mean, you've had a training camp for God knows how long, and you put in a performance like that. I thought Zhang was a disgrace. Even though he scored 2 knockdowns, do not let that fool you. But Ron, Jospeh Parker right now, I said it at the start of this podcast, and I'm going to ask you the question. Is Jospeh Parker perhaps maybe the heavyweight to disrupt the big boys in the division right now?
He's answering all the questions right now. I mean, he was put in fight with Deontay Wilder. That was like, okay, you get this, and you get to the promised land with a big fight against AJ. and he's just completely shocked the world when he put on that performance. What a performance against Deontay Wilder! You know, just watching the highlights back. You know, and I agree with what you said about Andy Lee. You know, he's going to be credited. But if you look at Jospeh Parker, right? If you look at his resume, who he's fought, is incredible, isn't it?
100%, 100%.
You know, he's fought against the likes of Andy Ruiz. He's fought against oh God,
Chisora
Dillian White,
Joe Joyce,
Joe Joyce. That was a great fight.
Anthony Joshua.
Anthony Joshua. He was the
Deontay
first
Wilder.
person to go 12 rounds with Anthony Joshua at the time, if you remember that. And you know, the last two performances have been great. You know, I think Andy Lee's made him a really come forward kind of fighter, but Zhilei Zhang, I think everyone expected that. If he doesn't get him out early, then he's in trouble. Because that's one of his question marks is over his tank. And if you look at the fight against Joe Joyce, he won that in the mid rounds. Would you say? So
yeah, I would say that the fight against Joe Joyce was, you know,
power.
it was power. It was power.
Yeah, it was pummeled him. It wasn't outboxing him. It wasn't. He just landed those big, you know. And if you get hit by that guy, which even Jospeh Parker felt it, you know, he took his time. He was calm and kind of gathered himself before getting up. So,
but this is the best example of in boxing to use. I mean, you look at it, right? Joe Joyce knocked out Jospeh Parker. Zhilei Zhang knocked out Joe Joyce. So people are probably thinking, well, you know, Parker lost to Joyce, and look what Zhang done to him, and Parker's going to beat him. You know, it just goes to show you that styles make fights. And on the night,
but I think Jospeh Parker's come a long way from that fight.
Well, there's 5 wins in 14 months, Ron. You talk about activity, 5 fights in 14 months. That is no joke. And then you look at some of the names out of those 5 fights. Okay, the Jack Massey performance wasn't the best performance. And then obviously he fought on the Fury on Ngannou on the card where he got a knockout victory. I just think the last 2 wins have really elevated him, and he probably right now is in the top 5 of the heavyweight division, and you can't knock him. Is Andy Lee, right, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches out there. The amount of belief that he has, but you know what I'm really impressed with Andy Lee? I believe it was round 4 and round 8 he got knocked down in, and he just looked so calm in the corner. He just looked chilled. He didn't panic. He kept his nerves steady. He just kept on saying to him, look, don't worry about it. You know, regroup, you know, catch your breath, do this, do that. And you know, we pay credit to Ben Davison, but you also got to pay credit to Andy Lee. I mean, what a job he's done with Jospeh Parker. You know, 5 fights in 14 months, 5 wins. And one of the topics we were meant to discuss with the Joshua win is what's next for Joshua. I would like to see Joshua Parker too. I think that's the fight to make. You know, I said that I'd still like to see Joshua Wilder, but then obviously you look at how the sport works. Wilder's lost his last fight. I can't see Jospeh Parker getting a world title shot because of the sort of contractual agreements between Fury and Usyk. That's a 2-fight deal. So why not have number 3 versus number 4, Parker versus Joshua? Is that something you'd want to see again? I know the first fight was
I think from what I'm hearing, I cannot knock that. But what I'm hearing, there's a rematch clause with Zhilei Zhang.
Oh God, no! I don't want to see that again.
No, but there is going to be it because he's lost. What was the title? Was it an interim title?
WBO interim.
Yeah, it was an interim. Yeah, so they're going to rematch for that.
Okay.
But it was a one-way rematch clause. So the only way if Zhilei Zhang lost, then they were going to get a rematch. If Jospeh Parker lost, then you know Zhilei Zhang moves on. So he's kind of scuppered his plans. But I just thought he fought really, really smart. He didn't waste his punches. He had to ride out some big, heavy hits. You know, there's knockdowns, but he came through, and you know, they've worked on his stamina and cardio most definitely. So that was pleasing to see. He came across another challenge, and you know, he deserves it. He deserves it. You know, he's doing New Zealand proud as their heavyweight champion of that world. I mean, lot of, there's from that part of the world, a lot more boxers are coming through. There was some on the undercard as well.
If you look at the knockdowns, Ron, they don't look like powerful punches, but when you watch them in slow motion, they're very powerful.
Look, man,
And
you're getting hit by a guy the size of Zhilei Zhang. They're all going to be back. They're all going to be heavy blows, man. So
chat shit, get zhanged is the line. Chat shit, get zhanged. Also on that card was Rey Vargas versus Nick Ball, and the British fighter who put in a hell of a performance, managing to drop the world champion. In my opinion, did enough and yet got robbed. Another controversial decision in the sport of boxing. Ron, another sad moment for the sport.
I mean, the man was what, 5'2" versus Rey Vargas was 5'11". And from the very off,
Ron, it's the Scouse blood in the guy. That's what got him.
Yeah. I mean, I thought this is going to be an easy night for Vargas. Looked at his record, very experienced, walking in with Manny Pacquiao, for God's sake. So, he's in good company there, and a Mexican fighter. And, he had long, rangy arms. I thought he's going to fight keep it at distance, because obviously with the height difference, and, he's very stocky. He's short, isn't he? And small build. You know what? We were watching the fight. Someone said this reminds me of that game on the Nintendo. What was that game on the Nintendo where you got the small little man and you got the big? You're fighting against a big fighter.
Oh, Street Fighter.
No. It's like a boxing game, knockout or something. It was called.
I can't remember, Ron.
Yeah, it just reminded me of that because that's how small.
I'm not 55 years old like you, Ron. I was born a bit later.
But you know what? Really enjoyed his. I loved his work ethic. Nick Ball, it's only 12th fight. And, he that was shocking that he's stepping up on this kind of level. And he did himself really proud against someone who's, a world champion, who's seasoned pro as well, who's in his early 30s. I thought, he was making the fight ugly. Didn't want, Rey Vargas to fight his fight. And just getting on the inside and scoring 2 knockdowns. The first one was controversial, but the second one was clear cut for me. Both, their corner wasn't very happy about that. Absolutely gutted. I think that was his moment. You can see they thought they'd achieved it, but there was some kind of like mind games going on with both sides celebrating. I thought, what's going on here? Surely Nick Ball's won this. To kind of see it as I think it's a cop out when they put it as a draw. You
know what? I thought Rey Vargas was an absolute disgrace on the night. I thought his tactics were poor for a world champion. You're fighting a guy that you've got so many advantages over. One of them being the height advantage, one of them being the experience, and one of them obviously being the defending world champion. And for the guy to fight on the back foot all night long against a guy who you mentioned, what was it, his 12th fight? I thought Rey Vargas was an absolute disgrace, and I thought he got
work rate was. I think that's you've got to give credit to Nick Ball. I mean, he made it that fight. He kind of wanted it at close quarters, and he was ugly as well, and he made it frustrating for Rey Vargas. I mean, early rounds I gave to Rey Vargas, but I thought mid to late, I think Nick Ball just put his foot down. His stamina must be great. He didn't look like he was gassed out. He was landing these big shots, those big, massive right overhands.
I was going to say, as it is, I thought Vargas was a disgrace on the night, and I just thought, wow, if you're supposed to be the world champion and you're putting on a performance like that, he did not look interested after round 3, just didn't look interested. And Nick Ball's game plan, relentless. That's the way you can sort of sum up his game plan. And the decision, well, this is just happening too often in boxing. Hopefully there's going to be a rematch. If I'm Rey Vargas and I'm his team, I would not want anything to do with Nick Ball again. I mean, I just think he's all wrong I just think he's all wrong for me, and I just. You're the defending world champion. You're just expecting that little bit more oomph from the guy. And I just say as it is, I thought he was a bitch. I thought the guy was a bitch. I thought he sat on the back foot. He did not look interested in engaging with Nick Ball. And a split draw. I mean, it's just so disappointing. I put a tweet out at the end of the fight and I said the guy's worked all of his life just to get to this point in the sport. He takes the fight to the champion and he gets given a split draw. I'm hoping there's a rematch, or I just hope Vargas just vacates and retires, because if that's a world champion, then I'm sorry, this sport is in a lot more trouble than we already think it is. Do you think we get the rematch, or do you think maybe they go down a different direction, Ron?
Look, I hope so. I hope he can make amends for that shocking decision against him. But yeah, I could see how animated Frank Warren was after the fight. He's denied this. He's probably been doing it all his life. Nobody gave him a chance. Nobody. I mean, I hadn't heard of him. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say, yeah, I knew. I've watched his fights. I mean, he was quite a novice considering he's only had 12 fights. He had no reason being there, fighting a world champion, but yet there he was, and he gave a really did a good account of himself. And I thought he landed a better fight, better punches. His work rate was immense. Yeah, I mean, I gave the earlier rounds to Vargas. That's about it. But as the fight went on, he was kind of trying to close that distance like you would as a small guy, and trying to land those over rights and the two knockdowns. I need to see the scoring properly to see which rounds they gave to Vargas, and to see if there's a case for it, but not in my eyes.
Well, nonetheless, another poor decision, and another fighter who's done it from the very bottom, robbed of world title glory, and this sport stinks. And it just, yeah, that's just how boxing is right now. And unfortunately, it's only going to get worse before it gets better. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, as people say. Well, moving on, and obviously we've got a few announcements to discuss before we bring today's pod to an end. The undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez, has announced his next fight, and that will take place on May the 4th at the T-Mobile Arena against the undefeated fellow Mexican Jaimie Munguia. Now, over the last month or so, there's been a lot of talks about what Canelo does next. Has he left the PBC? Would he go back to Matchroom and Eddie Hearn? Would he look to fight maybe a David Benavidez? Is Jamal Charlo going to be the next fight? But in my opinion, he's taken probably the second best option, and that is to fight the undefeated Jaime Munguia. Ron, I remember a few weeks ago when I believe it was podcast 72, and we said that Canelo's losing his appeal because of the guys who he's choosing to fight now. Does this fight with Munguia sort of bring back that appeal, and does it have fans excited for his next fight?
Yep. Better than Charlo, who I thought I was reported to be agreed to fight, but thank God that's common sense has prevailed. I was listening to interesting enough, I was listening to a Andre Ward interview where he was talking about Canelo, and one critique. Canelo, he goes hands down, he's got a great resume, but there's an argument that he fights fighters past their best, and he was mentioning about Kovalev being well past his best, and these other big fights. So you've got to give him credit where he's fighting a 27-year-old Jaime Munguia, who's is going to hopefully give him a run for his money. I hope so. I think no one's got a better resume in world of boxing than Saul Canelo Alvarez. So good. I'm really happy that's a fight I would potentially look to kind of wake up early in the morning for.
Yeah, it's against a good, young, hungry, and ambitious Jaime Munguia. I mean, we weren't a fan of the Jamel Charlo fight, and we certainly weren't going to be a fan of the Jamal Charlo fight. There's obviously a lot of people saying that the Bivol rematch is something they'd like to see. There was talks of Chris Eubank Jr. And of course, obviously, I always said it along that I'd like to see either Benavidez Munguia or Eubank Jr. So I'm glad he's gone with one of the three options that I wanted. And I've always rated Munguia. I've just always thought to myself that he needs that defining fight. He needs that big name. He needs that sort of, pound for pound king that we will know, that will ask questions of Munguia, and who better to sort of test yourself in with one of the pound for pound's best and probably one of the greatest fighters of our generation. It's a great fight. It's in May. You know, I think Munguia's got a great chance. I mean, what is left of Canelo Alvarez, if you look at his year last year, went the distance with John Ryder and Jamel Charlo, it just makes you think, is his age catching up on him? He's fought a lot over the last few years. He's been involved in big fights. He's beaten big names. I think Munguia might be getting him at the right time. I've always liked Munguia, and I've always said that until he gets that big name, we're going to know more about Munguia. I don't know, Ron. What chance do you give Munguia? Because I think this is a 50-50 fight. I really believe it is a 50-50 fight.
I disagree. I think Canelo, he's taken this fight. There must be a high degree of confidence, that he can win this fight.
It's two Mexicans fighting each other, Ron.
Two Mexicans, yeah. I think it's highly in Canelo's favor. 70-30 maybe, even higher, 75-25 maybe. That's the percentage I give. Munguia has got nothing to lose here. He's got a good record. He's missing that. Yes, I agree. He's missing that key name on his resume. And this is it. He's going to step up now against the best in the business. A pound for pounder, top 10, we can definitely say. So here's his chance. And no one can knock Canelo for fighting a 27-year-old Munguia who's come across, did he stop John Ryder, Munguia?
Yeah.
He did. So, and we saw how Canelo came up against John Ryder.
Exactly.
So that they've got a opponent in a common opponent. So I'm sure they're going to be looking at. Hopefully, we're going to get to see a lot of John Ryder kind of giving his take on both fighters and how he thinks that fight's going to go.
Another announcement that got made at the back end of last week was Jake Paul on July 20th will take on heavyweight legend Iron Mike Tyson. I mean, come on. It's just like, if you're Mike Tyson, you're thinking, I get to keep a bit active. I get to keep my name sort of relevant, even though you don't need to be fighting ever again. And if you're Jake Paul, you're thinking ching ching. And I mean,
what's the capacity of where they're holding the fight? I'm hearing 80,000. Is that anything?
Yes, at the AT&T Stadium in Texas.
80,000. Wow,
and there is a 30-year-old difference between the two fighters as well. It's crazy. I mean,
that sums it up. 80,000 pay-per-view. We're talking about some serious money for both of these fighters. Yeah. So they're walking away with some serious money. This is business sense here.
Ron, come on, he's fighting Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
You can understand
what weight they're gonna. I mean, what Jake Paul of what weight did he fight last?
Ron, I know Jake Paul gets slammed for fighting guys from yesterday, like your Anderson Silvas. How on earth has he landed a fight with Mike Tyson? He's either got to be pretty fucking confident or he's got to be brain dead, because Mike Tyson, when he fought Roy Jones Jr. in what was supposed to be an exhibition, didn't turn up just for a tippy-tap dance. Mike Tyson's going to turn up to knock this guy out, but what on earth are the boxing commission even thinking of? Do they realize the damage that this fight could cause? If Mike Tyson lands on Jake Paul, it will end horribly. But Mike Tyson's 57 years old now. Did these guys not see what happened to Evander Holyfield in his last fight? I mean, I'm sorry, Ron. I'm dead against this. I'm gonna watch it because it's Mike Tyson, because I love Mike Tyson and because I want to see one more Mike Tyson moment. But I pray to God nothing goes seriously wrong in this fight, not just for Mike Tyson, but also Jake Paul. Because oh my God, can you imagine Jake Paul throwing abuse to Mike Tyson during fight week? This is the one guy you do not want to get caught by. I can't believe it's happening. I'm just shocked.
Well,
What weight
it
is going to
is.
happen? I don't know what weight it's going to happen at. It'll have to happen at heavyweight. It's going to have to
Yeah,
happen.
I mean, that was my question earlier. What weight did Jake Paul fight last at? Was it super middleweight or
It was cruiserweight, Ron.
was it cruiserweight?
Something like that, yeah. Cruiserweight, bridge up.
Cruiserweight. Okay, so he's not a million miles off. I mean, I see him. I thought it was super middleweight, but I didn't realize he was a lot bigger. So cruiserweight, yes.
Ron, 2 weeks ago, he was having a dispute with a guy that I believe is now middleweight, was meant to fight Amir Khan in one of his fights, the Indian fight. I can't remember his name. And now he's fighting a former heavyweight champion of the world who's 57 years old. You know, when people say, oh, but you know what, you got to give him credit, you have to take him serious. This is why you don't take him serious at all. You're fighting a 57-year-old Mike Tyson. Jesus Christ. Don't get me wrong, right? I can understand the concept behind it. They're both going to make a serious amount of money, but what does Jake Paul benefit of beating a 57-year-old Mike Tyson? And apart from a payday,
it's all a payday. It's all a payday. It's not about boxing credibility or kind of boxing legacy. Far from it. I think it's just pure entertainment. Jake Paul stepping between those ropes. He's putting himself at risk with a fight like this, most certainly against someone known as the baddest man on the planet at one point in his career, high point in his career. So yeah, no, it should be fun. I think we'll all tune in and watch it, and knowing these guys, they'll put on a really good undercard as well. Hopefully, we'll get some on the back of that fight.
Can we expect fireworks that fight week?
Most certainly. Jake Paul's not one to do it without any controversy. So Mike Tyson, controversies followed him his whole life and throughout his whole career. So there's a lot of great moments. So let's see. Hopefully, we'll make some new ones. Be fun to kind of keep up to see the back and forth between those two.
Well, as long as the guy who screamed put him in a straight jacket doesn't turn up to fight week, I can't see Mike Tyson's feathers getting twisted the wrong way. But it's Mike Tyson and it's also Jake Paul. Final topic, Ron, and this is something that I've actually been looking forward to discussing with you. And we know that Ryan Garcia's next fight is scheduled to be against WBC world champion Devin Haney. But a lot of social media posts and a lot of the sort of spotlight has been shining on Ryan Garcia because of his actions on social media and just the way he's come across as of late. There's obviously been the whole smoking weed, which was live on social media on his Instagram feed. I don't want to go too much into what he's been up to. I think everyone knows what he's been up to, Ron. But do you look at Ryan Garcia and do you have a sense of worry for him with his actions lately on social media? And do you believe that this guy's in the right frame of mind going into his fight with Devin Haney?
He's stepping in the ring with a pound for pound.
Ron, I'm not talking about the fight. I'm talking about his mental health. Do you think he's serious?
Man, it's he. What I've noticed with Devin Haney, Garcia, is he kind of goes from one extreme to another. There's no stability with him. There's just, I don't know if he's doing it for likes and for traction on his social media accounts. You'd like to see him put his head down and think, right, this is my second biggest fight. Obviously, it didn't go the way he wanted that to get versus Tank. He needs to get all this shit right. He's up there with a top operator with Devin Haney. I don't know what's going on in his head. He's going to be in the right frame of mind. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled out of a fight due to mental health issues, because he's done that in the past. I couldn't tell you who. I can't remember the name who he was going to fight. That fight was called off because of concerns with his mental health issue. Just didn't look right to me. Didn't look like when I saw a picture of him recently. Just not that kind of. I'm getting into that fight shape. It's not long off, long away. Like what? How many weeks? 4 or 5 weeks now before that event. Like you want to be kind of fully focused, locked away, working on your game plan, watching videos, and not having this bullshit social media, getting up to no good, smoking cannabis online, which kind of shows where your head's at, really.
Do you know what, right? I'm look back at the press conference they had, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, and he just looked like he was sweating. He looked uneasy. He was talking about religion quite a lot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He goes to the extremes. He's
Yeah,
he's a practicing Christian, which
and
I get.
I know he's obviously recently just come out of a divorce, and now
Yeah.
he's taking pictures and uploading them on his social media, talking about how he's found the love of his life. And I'm just, yeah. Do you look? I honestly hope that the governing bodies do not sanction this fight, and I hope that this fight gets postponed because this isn't a guy that looks right in the head. And regardless of what of our opinion of him as a boxer is, he's still a human being. He's still a father, and he's still part of a sport that we all love. And he's not fighting just anyone. He's fighting one of the best in the world right now, Devin Haney. And I hope the WBC and I hope people around him say, do you know what? This fight's not happening. You need to take a bit of time away from the sport. Get your head right. Get out of whatever mess that you're in, and just sort yourself out because this guy does not look right in the head and get seriously hurt. And that's the last thing we want to see. One run. There's a lot of rumors regarding Chris Eubank Jr. Apparently, he's looking to fight Terence Crawford next. I mean, he posted something on his social media the other day. We spoke about this. You asked the question, what does this mean for Bomac? I mean, it's a fight that nobody
Yeah.
saw coming. I mean, look, if Eubank Jr. is posting on his social media about it, that means only one thing. It is in talks. It possibly will happen. What's your thoughts on this, Ron? Because this is a strange one, but this is a fight I'd actually look forward to seeing.
I think a great fight to watch. I mean, uh, I think Asif would probably lead the plaudits for Bomac's transformation of Eubank from the first Liam Smith fight to the second one, where it was a great performance. I think that's one of the better performances we've seen from Eubank in years.
Oh, you just couldn't help it there, could you?
No, I'm surprised in our group chat nobody picked up on that. They were like, "Oh yeah, it sounds great." I'm like, hold on.
Oh.
Clearly, how does that work? I mean, I can't see Bomac
I'll
going back.
trade with you one day, then I'll trade with you another
Yeah,
day. Yeah.
I'll jump in between the rounds and
We'll share each other. You have me 6 rounds each.
but Bomac's not gonna clearly he's not gonna leave Crawford.
No chance.
No. We realize that. But if that's the case, and let's just say Eubank went back with Roy Jones again. Bomac's been with him in camp for the last
Yeah.
6-7 weeks, and that was his most recent fight. That just seems very bizarre to me. If that was going to be the fight, that someone who's been up and close and training you, and not years ago, the most recent fight, and then he jumped to another whole new. It's just going to be very difficult. I didn't see that fight coming.
I'm looking.
I'm not going to
forward
say no to it.
I'm looking forward to hearing English seniors' take on this because we've seen how much he discredited the idea of his son fighting Conor Benn and him going down in weight. This is Crawford now going up in weight. So, yeah, I mean, when there was talks of Crawford versus Canelo, I wasn't a fan of it. Don't get me wrong, it's a good fight. The only reason why I don't jump at these fights is because I don't like the idea of fighters going up in weight. I just think
It's a different ball game,
when
man.
fighters go up in weight, their careers just. I mean, look at Mikey Garcia. He went up in weight to fight Spence. Probably wasn't the same after that. Look at Khan and Brook. Went up in
It's
weight
the
to fight
power
Golovkin
difference, man.
It's just. But
Yeah.
Crawford is probably one of a kind. He's one of the best. He's probably the best fighter in the world right now. So, the rematch with Spence is not happening. I understand that. Tim Tszyu at 154 is there. Does it financially make sense? Probably not.
Who's
doesn't
Tim
want to.
Zoo fighting actually?
He's fighting someone at about 154. So maybe
Isn't
he's
he
look.
fighting Keith Thurman?
Sorry, Keith Thurman. He's fighting Keith Thurman.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe Crawford's looked at this and thought, I'm going to test myself going up in weight and make some money out of it as well. If I win this fight, maybe
I
this
reckon
is
Conor
going to
Ben fight makes more sense for Terence Crawford at
Yeah, it does.
147.
Of course, it does. If you're
You
talking
know what?
about,
If I was to be a matchmaker, thinking, God, you're going to jump up to 160, and this is someone it's more obviously easier for Eubank to make that. So styles make fights, I guess. But
who
then
wins, Ron? Who wins? Do you believe Crawford's got what it takes to go up to 160 pounds and beat
look,
Eubank?
we've seen when he comes up against really good boxers, slick
No, but Ron,
boxers.
this isn't about technically who's better. Like I said to you, Ron, he's already at a disadvantage because he's going up in weight. That's why I'm asking you the question. Who
Oh, I
wins this
reckon
fight?
I still favour Crawford.
Okay,
I
fair
favour
enough.
Crawford. Yeah,
That's a brave answer. I think
just for the boxing skills,
I
man.
think Eubank Junior will beat the shit out of him.
No,
I
I
think
don't think
Eubank Junior
so.
beats the
I
shit
think
out of him if it happens at 160 pounds. Gold. Do you know
no,
what?
I don't know. I'm just I don't know. I would like to know what weight
No, look. The
he
advice.
walks around with.
What I'd like to see Eubank Crawford do is fight somebody at 160 before he goes in with Eubank Junior. That's
Yeah.
what I personally would like
The
to see.
problem with Eubank Jr., he's not very active. So this kind of fight would be ideal for someone like Crawford. You can catch them, you try to see if you can catch them cold. And if you've got a trainer that knows the inside out, so what Eubank is like, and strengths and weaknesses, that's a massive advantage there as well. But yeah, I just think in terms of when he comes up against really good boxers, Eubank gets a little bit shown up a little bit, as we've seen against George Groves and Billy O. Saunders. He just doesn't step up when he comes up. So, but I definitely watch it. I think it'd be a worthwhile something I'd look forward to. But then I don't know. Eubank just seems in like a bit of a catch-22 situation. Either he's trying to make these bigger fights, he's looking for that another big, massive payday, and he attracts the attention for it as well.
Well, if it makes money, makes sense. But I think if Crawford is going to go up to 160 and he fancies his future to light 160, I think he needs to have a sort of tune-up fight at the division first. I don't think he should be fighting for Eubank Junior first. And I think if that fight does happen, I bank Eubank Junior to beat him, strictly because Eubank Junior is the more experienced fighter at 160 pounds. And we see this mistake with fighters so often. They go up in weight, they take on the biggest challenge, and the career's never the same after that. And in boxing, it's a funny old sport. And so we've got a great few months to look forward to. And we've also got a good, exciting show in Birmingham, the Magnificent Seven show, coming this weekend, which I will be there. I'll be covering. Looking forward to that. Good time for boxing right now. Ron, we're going to bring podcast 74 to an end, but before we do, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think it's been a good round of boxing. That again, we would have thanked Turkey Al Sheikh for giving us, these top fights, the fights that we would never have imagined happening. So, but like you said, man, I'm looking for what's coming up ahead. Some really good undercards. Hopefully in May, we'll be talking about Fury versus Usyk finally.
Fingers crossed. And like I said, anything can happen in the sport, especially when it concerns the Gypsy King. But as I said, that's all we've got time for today on the Lights Out Boxing podcast. Again, just a few quick friendly reminders. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are proudly sponsored by the #1 law firm in the UK, which is Spartans Law. So if you're ever in any trouble with the law and you need legal representation, Spartans Law, check them out. Links are below in the description. Check their website out. And make sure you give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. Again, links are below in the description. And this podcast is available on all audio platforms. Ron, before I let you go, Ramadan Mubarak to you, my brother. I hope you have a blessed month.
Ramadan Kareem.
Yep. And Ramadan Mubarak to all the Muslim Ummah out there. That's all we've got time for. Thank you very much, everybody, to listen to podcast 74 of the Lights Out Boxing podcast.